Hi, my name is Eric. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I've been sober for 3 years. So my first time drinking, I was about 14 years old. It was me and a bunch of my friends, and I think we got like some vodka and like mixed it together with lemonade, and I really didn't like the taste. Alcohol was the first thing I tried, and I think some of my friends had drank before, and it was kind of, especially that first time, it was the whole group mentality of, okay, we're all gonna do this. Everyone's getting into it together. It wasn't just me going for it alone. I definitely didn't know exactly what I was doing at the time. Especially over the next few years until I started smoking pot when I was 18. And for a while I thought that was really bad and that I would never do it, but more of my friends started doing it, and I eventually just started thinking that it was okay. And then the first time I tried that, I immediately loved it. It's that same first feeling that I got when I drank, where all of the anxiety and fear and whatever negative emotions or feelings I had were completely lifted from me. In high school, that need and want to escape through drugs and alcohol was always there. It was definitely something that I knew I couldn't do, but I really needed to do, and I really just loved kind of that sense of acting out and thinking that I was having fun, sneaking out to the track with a friend and like drinking tequila or whatever, and it was really just kind of the start of that behavior where I was kind of moving more away from my friends and more towards just focusing on myself, drugs and alcohol, and what I could do to drink more and take whatever drugs I needed to again get to that sense of ease and to kind of lift the fear and anxiety from me. And a lot of it was just to kind of get away from any big thoughts or questions I had about my life and where I was going and where I fit in my social world, I guess, with friends, also what I was doing with school, where I was going to go to college. And I really struggled with these things, and the only solace that I found was through the escape of drugs and alcohol. So the progression of my use with drugs and alcohol, I think, really started to take off once I got to college, and I realized that there isn't any structure set in place for me to achieve something that at least I felt was there in high school, where I kind of was forced to, I guess, move in a direction in terms of doing schoolwork and being kind of a part of the community there and having close ties to the faculty members. And once I got to college, and I realized that that's when it's on me to really learn how to create structures or set goals for myself, is when I realized that my main goal was to drink and smoke pot as much as I could. That's what I really, I think, deep down wanted to do in some sense, or the only thing that I really knew how to do. And that became probably my number one priority over school, over squash, over friends, over relationships. I went back for my sophomore year. I had to leave before the end of the first semester because I was extremely depressed, wasn't going to class, was just drinking and smoking every day. I didn't really feel comfortable where I was physically or mentally. And the only kind of respite from that I had was when I'd go out and drink, or if I'd just stay in my room and smoke. And I really just kind of fed into that isolation, really, that I could get. Things really just started to slowly unravel in my life as I continued to just focus on drinking and going out as much as I could. At that point I was 21, 22 years old, living in New York. I could barely make rent because I was spending everything I owned on alcohol, and especially at that time I started doing a lot more cocaine, and I was becoming pretty irresponsible at work, either showing up still messed up from the night before, or sleeping through any early work that I had. One of the most striking things that I can remember about when I truly realized that my drinking was becoming a big problem was just kind of looking at myself in the mirror. I got to a point where I couldn't really recognize the person that was staring back at me, and that was towards basically the end of my drinking, and I didn't have anything left to kind of throw down as an excuse for why I kept failing to reach any goal that I set out for myself. And I wasn't really depressed anymore. I'd been taking care of that, and I couldn't say that it was a deep down struggle within myself. I had stopped smoking pot at the time. I thought that was the problem. And yet it just still, things weren't clicking. It wasn't that I wasn't receiving the success, materially that I wanted. But that just deep down inside, I was still really sad and angry about myself and what I'd become. I couldn't be accountable for not only to myself but to other people, and I couldn't find any real joy in anything outside of drinking at that point. And I just slowly realized that I couldn't try to live a life that I wanted to live and drink. It was really that choice where I could choose either to do one or the other, but both of them just wouldn't work. And it took me a while to really come to that realization that my drinking was my first priority, and then trying to live my life after that was my second priority. And I really struggled to break through that and to recognize that. And when I finally did, I was fortunately able to stop drinking and to start finding new ways to live and new ways to kind of move forward from that. And it was pretty much in that instance, by process of elimination, that I started to come around to the idea that the drinking was a big issue, that it could be seen as one of the causes for a lot of the bad things that I had put myself through in my life at that point, especially in the last 4 years. When I was from 18 to 22, 23, it was a lot of it could be attributed to the fact that I just drank too much. And I had always thought that I would eventually learn how to control it. But in the end, my drinking and drug use was what was controlling me and controlling my life. And once I realized that, it started that slow process of coming to the decision to get sober and to really stop it. And it was really scary, but I'm really grateful that I was able to do that. The actual day-to-day processes of living it was different because I wasn't building my day around how I'm going to drink or how I'm going to drug today. So having those priorities change it's just very different. Things as simple as just kind of eating meals or cleaning my apartment or going to the gym, going to work. Everything's different. It used to just be I'd live the day in order to get to the night when I'd go out and drink. And that was really what each day revolved around. I really love being sober because it's made my life more fun than it ever was when I drank. When I first got sober, I was afraid that, I can't go to parties anymore, I can't go to concerts anymore, I can't go to Rangers games anymore, because these are places where I would drink, and I would really drink heavily and kind of use it as I get that social excuse of, everyone's doing it here. And the first few times that I went to parties or hockey games or concerts sober, I was afraid because I didn't know what it was like to be there and not drink or do drugs. And I'm able to actually really engage in what I'm doing presently there, which was extremely foreign to me in that first instance, but something that it pulled me in, and it was just so much more fun than I'd ever had before, where I'm actually able to remember everything that happens in the game, or I'm actually able to remember all the songs that I heard and how good they were, how good it was to hear them live, or conversations with friends at parties. I could not tell you a single conversation I had with friends at parties when I was drinking. I was always focused on drinking to excess and focused on myself, and now I get to interact more with the people around me or with the events going on around me. And now I'm just more focused on doing the best that I can and then accepting whatever comes after that. And it's been a real blessing to be able to live like that now. And yeah, just even just recently I went out to a big dinner with a bunch of friends, and went really late, and they're all drinking a lot, but I felt so present and I had so much fun being with them, even though I'm not drinking. It wasn't awkward. I didn't feel out of place. I felt like I truly fit in a way that I didn't before. I feel great every day, and I'm really grateful for that. So if I were to go back in time and talk to my former self, just kind of telling myself to really be honest with me and not to shy away from the things that I was afraid of. I knew that I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted, and my first instinct was just to drink. That was my number one priority. I remember feeling though that there was something wrong, that I felt uneasy about that I only wanted to do that, and that nothing else really mattered above that, above kind of my search to, I guess, drink and just party. I almost wish that I could have gotten sober when I was 20 or whatnot, and saved myself those 3 years of agony and just kind of that self-torture. And I think a big part of that would have been learning to reach out and ask for help, or just learning how to talk about the thoughts and feelings that I had towards drug and alcohol use. For high schoolers wanting to reach out for help, or not even just for help, but just to talk about whatever it is that's going on in their head or their mind, or the questions that they might have, go to someone who's a bit older, maybe like a teacher that you really trust, or if there's a school counselor, or on a professional level too, therapists, like psychologists and psychiatrists, or just the family doctor. These are all people that would be happy to help someone. And it doesn't have to be I have a problem, I need help talk. It can just be more exploratory and trying to figure things out. Because I continued to drink and drug for a while out of my ignorance of my problem. And my family tried to kind of point out to me that it was an issue, and I was extremely quick to kind of shut them down and could convince myself that it wasn't a problem, and that arrogance just helped me stay out even longer, until I really just couldn't anymore. And I never was honest with anyone about my attitude towards drinking and drugs, and what they really did for me, and how, in an ideal day, that's what I would do, is just drink and smoke pot every day, and that's all I really wanted to do, and I organized my life around those two activities. And sometimes it's difficult to notice that if I was just looking at myself, and if I was able to talk to someone, or if I trusted someone enough to talk to them about how I felt with that, then it would have been, I think, a lot more comfortable for me to deal with it. And I wouldn't have been able to keep up with my charade for so much longer. And so I think just that reaching out and talking to anyone about it, and I think that's really important to just have that conversation from a young age.